Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Shadows in Paradise. Russell Wyatt had always been a private man. At 43, his salt and pepper hair and broad shoulders gave him an imposing presence that commanded respect without him having to say a word. The quiet neighborhood in Westlake, Arizona knew him as the successful security consultant who kept to himself, occasionally hosting barbecues that the whole street looked forward to attending. What the neighborhood didn't know was that Russell's mundane facade concealed a former Special Forces operator who spent 15 years in classified operations before transitioning to civilian life. The transition hadn't been entirely complete. Russell maintained connections with his former teammates, many of whom now occupied positions throughout federal law enforcement, intelligence services, and the private sector. Russell met Brooke Anderson at a fundraiser 6 years ago. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with auburn hair that caught the light like burnished copper and a laugh that could brighten the darkest room. Back then, he'd been impressed by her apparent dedication to the children's charity she represented. Within 8 months, they were married. Another late meeting? Russell asked, watching Brooke apply lipstick at the vanity. Tonight marked the third emergency client meeting this week. You know how it is during tax season, Brooke said, carefully avoiding eye contact through the mirror. Palmer needs all hands on deck. The Reynolds account is a mess. Russell nodded, saying nothing about the fact that tax season had ended 2 months ago, or that her accounting firm's senior partner Gerald Palmer had been on vacation in the Caymans for the past week according to his very public Instagram posts. Instead, he kissed her cheek and told her not to work too hard. As Brooke's car pulled away, Russell opened his laptop, checking the GPS tracker he'd installed under her car 3 weeks ago when his instincts first started screaming that something was wrong. The movement matched exactly what he'd seen for the past several Thursdays, not toward downtown where her firm was located, but toward Scottsdale, specifically the Palmyra luxury condos. Russell closed the laptop, his face betraying nothing. He'd spent too many years behind enemy lines to let emotions cloud his judgment. He walked to his study, unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, and removed a burner phone. He dialed a number from memory. Leo? It's Russell. I need that favor now. Leo Thompson had been Russell's communications specialist during their deployment in Syria. Now he worked for a major credit bureau. Give me 24 hours, Leo replied. Russell gazed at the wedding photo on his desk. Brooke's smile, once magical to him, now seemed calculated. He placed the frame face down and began a plan. Chapter 2, Paper Trails. The next evening, Russell sat alone in his home office, methodically reviewing the documents Leo had sent. Brooke's financial life was laid bare before him, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Credit cards he'd never known about, loans taken against their home equity, a second mortgage on the vacation property in Sedona. All told, Brooke had accumulated nearly $380,000 in debt behind his back. The spending pattern was erratic at first, but had increased dramatically over the past 18 months. Russell accessed their joint bank account online. What should have been a comfortable savings had been systematically drained, with transfers to an account he didn't recognize. The withdrawals always came the day after his consulting firm's direct deposits. A text message alert interrupted his investigation. It was from Miguel Delgado, another former teammate who now worked for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. The message contained a single address in Scottsdale and 2 words, Unit 507. Russell changed into a black polo and slacks, items that wouldn't stand out, but also wouldn't be easily remembered. He drove to the Palmyra, an exclusive high-rise with views of Camelback Mountain. The security desk was unmanned when he arrived, a stroke of luck he hadn't counted on. He took the elevator to the 5th floor. Outside Unit 507, Russell paused, listening. Brooke's distinctive laugh filtered through the door, followed by a male voice he didn't recognize. He pulled out his phone and activated a recording app, then pressed it against the door. I can't keep coming up with excuses forever, Alec, Brooke was saying. We need to move our timeline up. Baby, these things take time, the male voice, Alec replied. The properties in Costa Rica aren't ready yet, and we need his signature on those papers before we can access the rest. He's getting suspicious. I caught him looking at the bank statements yesterday. Then distract him. You know how to do that. Alex's voice dropped lower, seductive. Just like you're going to distract me right now. Russell had heard enough. He quietly left the building, his mind cataloging every word, every implication. As he drove home, he made another call. Dennis, it's Russell. I need everything you can find on an Alec living at the Palmyra, Unit 507. Dennis Harper had been their intelligence officer. Now he worked as a private investigator with a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. Consider done, Dennis replied. And Russell, whatever this is about, be careful. You've always had a tendency to go dark when things get personal. I'll be fine, Russell said, ending the call. At home, he unlocked his gun safe and removed his Glock 19, checking it methodically before returning it to the safe. Not yet, he thought. First, he needed the full picture. As he closed the safe, he heard Brooke's car in the driveway. Russell composed himself, erasing any trace of what he now knew from his expression. He'd spent years interrogating enemy combatants. He could certainly handle an evening with a lying spouse. "How was your day?" he asked as she entered, smiling with practiced ease. "Exhausting," Brooke sighed dramatically. "You wouldn't believe the mess with the Anderson portfolio. I'm just glad it's Friday." Russell nodded sympathetically, noting the slight smudge of her lipstick, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. "I was thinking," he said, "we should look at refinancing the Sedona property. Interest rates are down." He watched carefully as panic flashed in her eyes before she controlled it. "Oh, well, let's talk about it next week. I'm too tired to think about finances tonight." "Of course," Russell agreed, knowing that by next week, everything would be different. Take your time. Chapter 3, The Unraveling. Tuesday morning, Russell sat across from Harvey Maxwell, his attorney for the past decade. The older man's office overlooked downtown Phoenix, the desert sun casting harsh light across the conference table where Dennis Harper's comprehensive report lay open. Alexander Alec Reeves, Harvey read aloud. 41. Former investment banker who lost his license after a securities fraud investigation 3 years ago. No convictions, but paid a substantial settlement. Currently working as a financial consultant for cash-only clients. A con man, Russell said flatly. Essentially, Harvey agreed. And according to these bank records, your wife has transferred just over $420,000 to accounts associated with him in the past year alone. Russell's jaw tightened. And the properties in Costa Rica? Dennis cleared his throat. 3 beachfront lots purchased 6 months ago through a shell company. The paperwork lists both Reeves and Brooke as beneficial owners. They've been developing vacation villas with plans to sell to wealthy Americans looking for tax havens. "Using my money," Russell said. "Yes," Dennis confirmed. "And based on the documentation I found in their cloud storage, they're planning to have you sign papers to access your investment portfolio. Once they have that, they disappear," Russell finished. Harvey adjusted his glasses. "Russell, with this evidence, we can file for divorce immediately. Cite fraud, infidelity." "No," Russell cut him off. "A divorce means she gets half of everything despite the fraud. That's not acceptable. What exactly are you planning?" Harvey asked cautiously. Russell stood, walking to the window. "I'm going to confront her tomorrow. I need you both to be ready. Dennis, I want surveillance on Reeves. Harvey, prepare the documents we discussed." Both men exchanged concerned glances. "Russell," Harvey said, "whatever you're planning, remember there are legal ways to handle this." Russell turned, his expression unreadable. "I spent 15 years operating in places where the law couldn't protect me. Harvey, I learned to create my own justice." He checked his watch. "I'll call you both tomorrow evening." As Russell left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. "Need to discuss something important tonight. Making your favorite dinner." Perfect timing, he thought. She was making her move. That evening, Russell arrived home to find Brooke in the kitchen, a bottle of his favorite bourbon open on the counter. The dining room table was set with their best china, candles already lit. "This looks special," he commented, accepting the glass she handed him. "I've been neglecting us lately," Brooke said, her fingers lingering on his as she passed the drink. Work has been so demanding. I thought we deserved a nice evening together. Throughout dinner, Brooke was attentive, laughing at his stories, touching his hand frequently. When they moved to the living room with their drinks, she sat closer than she had in months. "I've been thinking," she said, curling against him on the sofa. "We should take that trip to Europe you've been wanting. Maybe in the fall." Russell smiled. "That sounds wonderful, but we might need to look at our finances first. I was reviewing our accounts earlier." He felt her stiffen slightly before she relaxed again. "Actually, that's something I wanted to discuss," she said. "I've been talking to this brilliant financial advisor about some investment opportunities. Very exclusive deals." "Oh." Russell kept his voice neutral. "Yes, he's helped several of my colleagues. He has these amazing international properties." She stopped when Russell's phone rang. He checked the display. "Sorry, I need to take this. It's a client emergency." He stepped into his office, closing the door. It was Dennis. "Reeves just booked 2 one-way tickets to San Jose, Costa Rica, for Friday morning," he reported, under the names Alexander and Brooke Wilson. "Thank you," Russell said calmly. "Keep monitoring." When Russell returned to the living room, Brooke was on her phone, texting rapidly. She quickly put it away when she saw him. "Everything okay?" she asked with practiced concern. "Just a minor issue with the client's security system," he lied smoothly. "Now, you were telling me about these investment opportunities?" Brooke launched into a carefully rehearsed pitch about exclusive real estate developments, never mentioning Reeves by name or Costa Rica specifically. As she spoke, Russell noticed how she'd positioned the documents on the coffee table, how she'd already opened the bourbon before he arrived. "It does require some paperwork," she said finally, reaching for the folder. "Just routine authorization forms. We should actually go over these tonight, if possible." Russell took the papers, pretending to review them. They were cleverly disguised power of attorney documents that would give her full access to his investment accounts. He set the papers down and looked directly into her eyes. "This is very thorough," he said. "Let me sleep on it, and we can sign everything tomorrow. I'd like to review them when I'm not half a Bourbon, Indiana." Disappointment flickered across her face before she recovered. "Of course, no rush. I just thought you'd be excited about the opportunity." "Oh, I am," Russell assured her, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I think tomorrow will bring all sorts of revelations." Chapter 4. The Confrontation. Russell arrived home early the next day, having spent the morning finalizing his preparations. He'd confirmed that Brooke had taken the day off work, ostensibly for a dental appointment, but her car had been tracked to the Palmyra again. She returned home just after 3, carrying shopping bags from luxury boutiques. "Russell," she exclaimed, clearly startled to find him sitting in the living room. "I thought you'd be at work until 6. "Change of plans," he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "We need to talk, Brooke." She hesitated, then set her bags down. "Is everything okay?" "That depends on your perspective," Russell said, his voice unervingly calm. "I've been doing some financial planning of my own. Did you know that second mortgages leave quite the paper trail?" All color drained from Brooke's face. She opened her mouth to speak, but Russell continued. "I especially found the timing interesting. Our Sedona property was remortgaged the same week 3 beachfront lots were purchased in Guanacaste, Costa Rica." He leaned forward. "What a coincidence." "Russell, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," he interrupted. "Just like you can explain the $420,000 you've transferred to Alec Reeves in the past year, or the one-way tickets to Costa Rica for Friday morning." Brooke's shock was genuine. Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" Russell's voice remained level, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "Did you think the skills that kept me alive behind enemy lines for 15 years wouldn't translate to detecting a basic con job?" Brooke's expression shifted, calculation replacing fear. "This is insane. You've been spying on me? Tracking me? That's illegal." "So is fraud," Russell countered. "So is theft. So is forging your spouse's signature on loan documents." Her strategy changed instantly. Tears welled in her eyes as she moved to kneel beside his chair. "Russell, please. Alec manipulated me. He threatened me. I was scared to tell you." Russell looked down at her, unmoved by the performance. You're good, Brooke. Very good. But I've interrogated people who truly feared for their lives. Your performance lacks authenticity. She stood abruptly, tears vanishing. Fine. You caught me. What now? Half of everything is still legally mine. We'll divorce. I'll get my settlement, and you'll never see me again. That would be the conventional approach, Russell agreed. But I'm not feeling particularly conventional today. Something in his tone made her take a step back. What does that mean? Russell stood, closing the distance between them. It means I want everything returned, my money, my properties, all of it. You and Reeves will sign the documents my attorney has prepared, transferring everything back to me. In exchange, I won't press charges. Brooke laughed bitterly. You're delusional. I'm not signing anything. In fact, she reached for her phone. I'm calling the police right now. I don't feel safe with you. Russell didn't try to stop her. Go ahead. I'm sure they'll be very interested in all the evidence I compiled. The fraud investigation alone will take years to untangle. Her finger hovered over the screen. Then her expression changed, a cold calculation entering her eyes. You're right. Let's be civilized. I'll have Alec bring the Costa Rica paperwork. We'll sign everything over, and you'll never hear from us again. Russell smiled thinly. I thought you might see a reason. Have him come over tonight. Brooke nodded, already texting. After a moment, she looked up. He'll be here at 8. Perfect. I'll open some wine. The next 4 hours passed in a grotesque parody of domestic normalcy. Brooke retreated to the guest bedroom to freshen up, which Russell knew meant she was coordinating with Reeves. He used the time to activate the recording devices he'd placed throughout the house and alert Dennis and Harvey that the plan was in motion. At precisely 8, the doorbell rang. Russell opened it to find a tanned, expensively dressed man with artificially whitened teeth and carefully styled hair. Mr. Wyatt, Alec Reeves extended his hand. A pleasure to finally meet you. Russell shook it firmly. Likewise, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Brooke appeared behind Russell, her entire demeanor transformed. The terrified woman from hours earlier was gone, replaced by someone coolly professional. Let's get this over with, she said. In the dining room, Russell poured wine while Reeves laid out documents. These transfer the Costa Rica properties back to you exclusively, Reeves explained smoothly. And these terminate any claims Brooke might have on your financial accounts. Very thorough, Russell observed, scanning the papers. But there's something missing. What's that? Reeves asked, confidence unwavering. Restitution, Russell replied. The $420,000 Brooke transferred to you. I want it back. Reeves laughed lightly. That money's gone, Mr. Wyatt. Investments, development costs. You understand how business works. Russell's gaze hardened. I understand exactly how your particular business works, Mr. Reeves. Securities fraud, investment scams, targeting wealthy divorcees, until you hit the jackpot with my wife. Reeves's smile faltered slightly. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Russell pulled out his phone, playing a recording, Brooke and Reeves discussing how to get Russell's signature on the power of attorney documents. Brooke slammed her wine glass down. You recorded us? That's illegal. Arizona is a one-party consent state, Russell replied calmly. I was present during that conversation last night. This is ridiculous, Reeves stood. We're leaving. Good luck proving anything. Sit down, Russell said, his voice suddenly carrying the unmistakable tone of command. Something in his expression made Reeves comply instantly. You have two options. Sign my documents returning everything and transferring $420,000 to my account, or I send all my evidence to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, the Arizona Attorney General, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Reeves glanced at Brooke, who had gone pale. You're bluffing, she said weakly. Russell pulled out a second phone and pressed a button. Dennis? Are you ready with the evidence packages? He paused. Good. If I don't call you within the hour, send them all. He set the phone on the table. 1 hour. Reeves's confidence had evaporated. I don't have $420,000 liquid. Most of it went into those properties. Then you have a problem, Russell replied. Because those are my terms. A tense silence filled the room. Suddenly, Brooke lunged for the sideboard drawer, yanking it open and pulling out a small revolver. One Russell kept hidden for home defense. Enough, she shouted, aiming the gun at Russell. Sign the original papers and give us access to your accounts. Or, I swear to God, I'll shoot you right here. Russell didn't move. That gun isn't loaded, Brooke. Bullshit, she snarled, finger tightening on the trigger. The hammer fell with a dull click on an empty chamber. Brooke's eyes widened. I told you, Russell said quietly. I've dealt with people who actually want to kill me. You think I'd leave a loaded gun where anyone could find it? Before anyone could respond, Brooke swung the gun like a club, catching Russell on the temple. He staggered as she hit him again, drawing blood. Reeves grabbed a wine bottle, smashing it against the edge of the table and holding the jagged remains like a weapon. New plan? Brooke hissed, still clutching the gun. We're leaving, and you're not going to follow us. Try anything, and I'll tell the police you attacked me. Who do you think they'll believe? The decorated businessman or the crazy ex-military with a history of violence? Russell touched his bleeding temple, his expression dangerous. You have no idea what you just done. Call the cops if you want. Reeves taunted, backing toward the door with Brooke. It's your word against ours. And there are two of us. As they reached the front door, Brooke paused. I never loved you, Russell. You were just a meal ticket, a boring, predictable bankroll. The doors slammed behind them, leaving Russell alone with blood trickling down his face. He calmly walked to the kitchen, pressing a towel to his wound as he picked up his phone. Dennis? They're running. Execute Plan B. Chapter 5, The Arrest. 2 hours later, Russell sat in the stark brightness of an interrogation room at the Scottsdale Police Department. His head wound had been cleaned and bandaged by paramedics, but they'd refused his request to leave, insisting he needed to give a statement. Across the table, Detective Sandra Willis reviewed her notes with practiced neutrality. Run me through it one more time, Mr. Wyatt. Your wife and her friend attacked you during a financial discussion. That's correct, Russell replied calmly. They wanted me to sign over power of attorney. When I refused, my wife struck me with an unloaded revolver, and Mr. Reeves threatened me with a broken wine bottle. And why was the revolver unloaded? I keep it for home defense, but store the ammunition separately. Willis nodded, making notes. Yet when officers responded to the domestic disturbance call, they found you alone in the house with evidence of an altercation, while your wife was at the Valley View Hospital emergency room with bruises to her face and claims that you assaulted her after discovering her affair. Russell's expression remained unchanged. Detective, in my former career, I was trained to disable armed opponents without killing them. If I had wanted to harm my wife, she wouldn't have been able to drive herself to a hospital. Willis studied him for a long moment. Mr. Reeves is supporting your wife's version of events. I'm not surprised. The detective closed her notebook. Mr. Wyatt, I've been doing this job for 17 years. Domestic situations are rarely straightforward. But when a wife shows up with bruises and her husband has military training, you're going to charge me, Russell stated. We're holding you for questioning in a domestic violence investigation, Willis corrected. You'll be processed and given the opportunity to contact an attorney. Russell leaned forward. I'd like to make my phone call now. 30 minutes later, Russell sat in a holding cell, his expression betraying nothing as officers processed other detainees around him. He had made exactly one call, not to Harvey Maxwell or any other attorney, but to a number few people knew existed. Near midnight, the station's night sergeant approached his cell. Wyatt, you've got 5 minutes in interview room C. Russell was escorted to a small room where a uniformed police captain waited, her silver-streaked black hair pulled into a severe bun. Captain Teresa Valdez had been with the Scottsdale PD for nearly 3 decades and was known for her no-nonsense approach. You've got friends in interesting places, Wyatt, she said without preamble. I cultivated relationships in my previous career, Russell replied simply. So I've been told. She slid a folder across the table. Your wife's statement is full of inconsistencies. Her medical exam showed defensive bruising only, consistent with someone striking an object, not being struck. Mr. Reeves's statement contradicts hers on several key points. Not surprising. Valdez leaned forward. I received a call from Chief Richardson himself, followed by one from the Deputy Director of the FBI's Phoenix Field Office. Both suggested I look very carefully at this case. And have you? We track your wife's movements using traffic cameras. She and Reeves stopped at the Palmyra before going to the hospital. Surveillance footage shows her entering without visible injuries and exiting 20 minutes later with the bruises she later claimed you inflicted. Russell said nothing. There's more, Valdez continued. A search of their condo found makeup specifically designed to create realistic-looking bruises, professional-grade stuff used in film production. We also found a whiskey bottle with your fingerprints on it, likely planted to support claims you were intoxicated. She closed the folder. Mr. Wyatt, I don't know what game is being played here, but it's clear you're not the aggressor. However, her expression hardened. I'm concerned about what happens next. The chief mentioned your specialized background. Captain, Russell said quietly, I appreciate your concern. But rest assured, everything that happens from this point forward will be completely legal. Valdez studied him for a long moment. We're releasing you without charges. Detective Willis will return your personal effects. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Whatever you're planning, remember that some kinds of justice leave permanent stains. Russell's smile didn't reach his eyes. Some stains are worth living with, Captain. An hour later, Russell walked out of the police station into the cool night air. A black SUV pulled up immediately, and the passenger door opened. Inside sat Chief of Police William Bull Richardson, Russell's former commanding officer from their Special Forces days. You look like hell, Russ, the chief commented as Russell climbed in. Appreciate the assist, Bull. 15 years in the shit together buys you one get-out-of-jail-free card, Richardson replied. Now tell me what the hell is going on. As the SUV pulled away, Russell explained everything. The affair, the financial fraud, the setup. Richardson listened without interruption. She's dangerous, the chief finally said. They both are. They'll try again, more carefully next time. I'm counting on it, Russell replied. Richardson glanced at his former teammate. What did you mean when you told Valdez everything would be completely legal? Russell looked out at the passing city lights. Just that whatever happens next, no laws will be broken. He paused. By me, at least. That's a fine distinction, Russ. It's the only one that matters. They drove in silence for several minutes before Richardson spoke again. The Palmyra is under surveillance. We're watching for your wife and Reeves to return. They won't, Russell said confidently. They'll be making emergency arrangements to leave the country. Their Costa Rica plans are compromised, so they'll choose a backup location, somewhere without extradition. Richardson raised an eyebrow. You seem very certain. I know how they think now, Russell replied, and I know exactly what they'll do next. Chapter 6, The Call. While Russell was being released from police custody, Brooke and Alec were frantically packing in a hotel room on the outskirts of Phoenix. We need to move fast, Alec said, shoving clothes into a suitcase. Once he gets out, he'll come after us. Brooke was scrolling through flights on her laptop. There's a 6 a.m. connection through Mexico City to Caracas. Venezuela has no extradition treaty with the U.S. Book it, Alec ordered. Use the backup cards I gave you, not your regular ones. Brooke nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard. What about the money? We can't access his accounts now. We've still got about $180,000 in the offshore account. It's not what we planned, but it's enough to start over. Alec paused. Unless what? Unless we get him to transfer the money under duress. Alec's expression turned calculating. We still have leverage. What leverage? He knows everything. Not everything. Alec pulled out his phone, showing her a screen with an account balance of just over $2.4 million. Remember when you added me as an authorized user on his investment account for estate planning purposes? He never removed me. Brooke's eyes widened. I forgot about that. We can transfer it all right now. Not from here, Alec cautioned. The IP address will be traceable. We need to use a public connection and a VPN. He checked his watch. There's a 24-hour cafe near the airport with free Wi-Fi. We'll do it there before our flight. As they finished packing, Brooke's burner phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Don't answer it, Alec warned. She checked the caller ID. It's the police station. Maybe they're still holding him. Against Alec's protests, she answered. Hello, Mrs. Wyatt? This is Captain Valdez with Scottsdale PD. I'm calling to inform you that your husband is being released without charges. Brooke forced her voice to remain steady. What? That's impossible. He attacked me. Our investigation found substantial evidence contradicting your statement, Valdez replied coldly. In fact, we have reason to believe you falsified your injuries and filed a false police report, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor in Arizona. That's ridiculous. I have bruises. I have a witness. We have surveillance footage, Mrs. Wyatt, from the Palmyra, showing you entering without injuries and exiting with them 20 minutes later. We also found a theatrical makeup in Mr. Reeves's condo. Brooke fell silent. We're issuing warrants for both you and Mr. Reeves, Valdez continued. I suggest you turn yourselves in immediately to avoid additional charges. The line went dead. Brooke turned to Alec, her face pale. They know. They have warrants. Alec cursed, grabbing the remaining bags. We need to move. Now, the airport cafe isn't safe. They'll be watching all the terminals. What about the money? We can't leave without it. Alec thought quickly. There's a truck stop with Wi-Fi off I-10. We'll stop there, make the transfer, then head to Nogales. We can cross into Mexico by car instead of flying. As they hurried to their rental car, neither noticed the unmarked police vehicle 3 spaces away, nor the surveillance camera above the hotel entrance capturing their every move. Inside the police department's mobile command center, Chief Richardson watched the live feed with Russell at his side. They took the bait, Richardson commented. Valdez played her part perfectly. Russell nodded. They'll avoid the airports now. He pulled up a map on the computer screen. There are 3 main routes to Nogales. Given their current location, they'll take I-10 to I-19. And the truck stop? Almost certainly the Flying J at exit 175. It's the last major stop before the junction. Richardson raised an eyebrow. You've thought of everything. Not everything, Russell replied. Just everything they might do. He checked his watch. They'll make their move within the hour. Can your people be in position by then? Richardson nodded to a technician, who immediately began relaying instructions over a secure channel. Already happening. But Russ, if they try to transfer your money, they won't succeed, Russell assured him. Harvey implemented the contingency protocols as soon as I was arrested. Any transaction over $1,000 requires 2-factor authentication through my personal phone, which they don't have, Russell confirmed. But they don't know that yet. At 2:17 a.m., Brooke and Alec pulled into the Flying J truck stop, parking away from the main building's security lights. Inside, they found a corner booth in the nearly empty cafe, opened a laptop, and connected to the Wi-Fi through a VPN. Quick, Brooke urged. Get in and out of the account in under 3 minutes. Alec nodded, logging into the investment portal using the credentials Brooke had provided months ago. The account loaded, showing the full balance of $2,437,869.22. It's all still there, he whispered triumphantly. He began setting up a transfer to their offshore account, fingers moving rapidly across the keyboard. When he clicked submit, however, a new screen appeared. For your security, this transaction requires additional verification. A code has been sent to the phone number ending in 4277. Alec froze. Does he have 2-factor authentication? He must have added it recently, Brooke said, panic rising. We need that code. Alec thought furiously. Call his phone. Maybe we can trick him into giving us the code. Brooke dialed Russell's number, her heart pounding. To her surprise, he answered immediately. Hello, Brooke? Russell's voice was unnervingly calm. I've been expecting your call. Russell, she forced herself to sound contrite. I'm so sorry about everything. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Stop, he cut her off. We both know exactly what this is about. You need the verification code for my investment account. Brooke was stunned into silence. Are you still at the Flying J truck stop? Russell continued conversationally. Table in the back corner, I'd imagine. Alec's probably wearing that ridiculous blue jacket he seems so fond of. Brooke's blood ran cold as she scanned the nearly empty restaurant. How do you? I know exactly where you are, what you're doing, and what you're planning next, Russell said. I've known from the beginning. Russell, please, she tried once more. We can work this out. Just give me the code, and we'll split the money. You'll never have to see me again. His laugh held no humor. You still don't understand, do you? This was never about the money. Then what? Consequences, Brooke. Actions have consequences. His voice hardened. Look out the window. Brooke turned to see police vehicles silently pulling into the parking lot, officers taking positions around the building. What have you done? She whispered. I haven't done anything, Russell replied. You did this. All of it. Every decision, every betrayal, every lie led you to this moment. They can't prove anything, she said desperately. It'll be your word against ours. Check your email. Confused, Brooke opened her email app to find a message from Russell sent just minutes ago. Attached were dozens of files, recordings of her conversations with Alec, bank statements showing the fraudulent transfers, evidence of the false police report, and most damning of all, a video from the Palmeraie showing her applying the fake bruises in Alec's bathroom. How she breathed. I told you. Russell's voice was steel. I spent 15 years behind enemy lines. Did you really think I wouldn't notice an enemy in my own home? Through the window, Brooke could see officers approaching the restaurant entrance. What happens now? She asked, her voice small. Now. Russell paused. Now you face the consequences of underestimating exactly who you were dealing with. He ended the call as the police entered the restaurant. As Brooke and Alec were being handcuffed, Captain Valdez's phone rang. She stepped aside to answer it, then approached the pair. It seems your situation has gotten more complicated, she informed them. The FBI just took over your case. Apparently, Mr. Reeves's financial activities crossed state lines, making this a federal matter. As they were led out to separate vehicles, Brooke caught a glimpse of Russell standing in the shadows across the parking lot, watching impassively. Their eyes met for one brief moment. In that instant, she finally understood the magnitude of her mistake. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. 3 weeks after the arrests, Russell sat in a conference room at the FBI's Phoenix Field office. Across the table, Special Agent Laura Mercer closed a thick file. The case against them is airtight, she confirmed. Fraud, conspiracy, filing false police reports, attempted theft, they're looking at significant federal time. And the plea bargains? Russell asked. Reeves flipped immediately, Mercer replied. Typical for his type. He's offered testimony against your wife in exchange for reduced charges. He'll still serve at least 7 years. And Brooke? She's been less cooperative. Her attorney is still pushing for a deal, but the U.S. attorney isn't feeling generous. She's facing 12 to 15 years, plus restitution. Russell nodded, his expression unreadable. There is one complication, Mercer added. Your wife is requesting a meeting with you before she makes any decisions about a plea. She claims to have information you'd want to hear. What kind of information? She wouldn't say, just that it's personal and urgent. Russell considered this. Set up. 2 days later, Russell was escorted into a small meeting room at the detention center. Brooke sat at a metal table, the orange jumpsuit washing out her complexion, her once perfect hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Without her usual makeup and expensive clothes, she looked smaller somehow, diminished. You came, she said as Russell took the seat across from her. I was curious what you thought was important enough to request this meeting. Brooke glanced at the guard stationed by the door. Can we speak privately? Russell nodded to the guard, who stepped outside, though they both knew he would be watching through the observation window. I need you to drop the charges, Brooke said without preamble. Russell's eyebrows rose slightly. That's why you wanted to meet? To ask for leniency. You don't understand. She leaned forward urgently. I can't do 15 years, Russell. I just can't. You should have considered that before stealing from me and trying to have me arrested. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Russell's voice remained level, but his eyes hardened. You systematically drained our accounts, had an affair, planned to steal my entire investment portfolio, assaulted me, filed false police reports, and tried to destroy my reputation. Those aren't mistakes, Brooke. They're choices. She slumped back in her chair. What do you want from me? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I was greedy and stupid. An apology implies remorse, Russell observed. You're just sorry you got caught. Brooke's facade cracked then, tears welling in her eyes. Please, Russell, I'm begging you. If you ever love me at all, Don't. He cut her off. Don't invoke what I felt for you. You destroyed that the moment you conspired with Reeves. They sat in silence for a long moment. There's something you should know, Brooke finally said, wiping her eyes. Something important. She took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. Russell's expression didn't change. No, you're not. Brooke blinked in surprise. What? Your medical screening, when you were processed, showed no pregnancy, Russell stated calmly. The results are in your file. They made a mistake. Brooke, Russell's voice held a note of finality. It's over. All of it. The lies, the manipulation, the games, they're finished. You have nothing left to bargain with. Her expression changed then, the vulnerable facade falling away to reveal cold hatred. You think you've won, don't you? The perfect Russell Wyatt, always in control, always 3 steps ahead. This isn't about winning. Bullshit, she spat. You're enjoying this. You orchestrated everything from the moment you suspected me. You set us up to fail. Russell leaned forward. I gave you multiple chances to walk away. All you had to do was return what you stole and disappear. Instead, you escalated. You tried to frame me for assault. Because I knew what you do. Men like you don't let things go. You hold grudges. You plot revenge. Men like me understand consequences. Russell corrected her. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Basic physics. Brooke's laugh was bitter. And now you get to be judge, jury, and executioner. Does it make you feel powerful, Russell? Watching me rot in prison while you rebuild your perfect life. This isn't about power, Russell replied, standing to leave. It's about justice. Justice? She sneered. This is revenge, pure and simple. Russell paused at the door. The difference between justice and revenge is that justice restores balance. Revenge just satisfies emotion. He looked at her one last time. And frankly, Brooke, you're not worth the emotion anymore. As he walked away, Brooke called after him. This isn't over, Russell. You'll regret this. I still have friends on the outside. Russell didn't look back. As the heavy door closed behind him, he nodded to the guard. We're done here. Outside the detention center, Dennis Harper waited by a black SUV. How did it go? He asked as Russell approached. Predictably, Russell replied. She tried everything. Pleas for sympathy, false pregnancy claims, and finally threats. Dennis frowned. Threats? Should we be concerned? No, Russell said confidently. She's grasping at straws. Still, Dennis looked troubled. People like Brooke sometimes have connections we don't know about. Maybe we should increase security at your house for a while. Russell considered this. Perhaps you're right. Set it up. He checked his watch. Now, I have another meeting to attend. Across town, in an upscale law office, Harvey Maxwell welcomed Russell with a firm handshake. Everything's prepared, the attorney said, leading him to a conference room where several documents awaited signature. The Costa Rica properties have been transferred back to your name, Harvey explained. The funds we could recover, approximately $210,000, have been returned to your accounts. The remaining amount may be recovered through restitution as part of the criminal proceedings. Russell signed where indicated. In the other matter, Harvey produced a separate folder. All arranged as you requested. The transfers will be initiated once you give final approval. Russell reviewed the documents carefully before signing. Immediate execution, Harvey. No delays. Of course. Harvey hesitated. Russell, are you certain about this? Once it's done, I'm certain, Russell replied firmly. It's the right thing to do. As he left the office, Russell's phone rang. Chief Richardson. We need to talk, the chief said without preamble. Meet me at O'Sullivan's in 30 minutes. The Irish pub was nearly empty when Russell arrived. Richardson sat in a back booth, a glass of whiskey untouched before him. What's wrong? Russell asked, sliding into the seat opposite. Richardson pushed a file across the table. Brooke made a call immediately after your visit. We monitored it as part of the federal case. Russell opened the file to find a transcript. The call had been to a burner phone, the recipient identified only as T. I need a favor, Brooke had said. You still owe me from Miami. It's time to collect. The response was brief. Name it. Russell Wyatt. I want him gone. Permanently. Russell closed the file. She's arranging a hit. Richardson nodded grimly. We don't know who this is, but the reference to Miami suggests someone with a criminal background. The feds are working to identify them, but burner phones make it difficult. Have they confronted Brooke? Not yet. They want to track T first, catch them both in a conspiracy. Russell considered this information. Let me see the case file for their investigation. Richardson looked uncomfortable. Russ, that's highly irregular. The FBI won't. Make it happen, Bull, Russell interrupted. I need to know who's coming for me. After a long moment, Richardson nodded. I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, watch your back. As Russell drove home that evening, he remained hyper-aware of his surroundings, checking regularly for tails or surveillance. When he arrived, he did a complete sweep of his property before entering the house. Inside, he went directly to his study, unlocking a hidden panel behind his bookshelf to reveal a small safe. From it, he removed his satellite phone and dialed a memorized number. It's Russell, he said when the call connected. I need to activate Protocol Chimera. The voice on the other end responded immediately. Authentication required. Sierra Echo 793 Tango. Authentication accepted. Chimera is live. Parameters? Russell provided the details. Names, locations, objectives. Timeline, the voice asked. Immediate, Russell replied. And I want confirmation when it's done. Understood. Chimera is proceeding. Russell ended the call, returned the phone to the safe, and closed the panel. He poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon and waited. Chapter 8. The Trap. The next week passed quietly. Too quietly. Dennis had installed additional security at Russell's house. Cameras, motion sensors, reinforced doors, but there had been no suspicious activity. The FBI had made no progress identifying T, and had finally confronted Brooke, who denied any knowledge of a hit and claimed she'd been just venting. Russell wasn't convinced. People like Brooke didn't make idle threats, especially not when facing 15 years in federal prison. Something was coming. He could feel it. On Thursday evening, as Russell worked in his study, his secure line rang. The display showed a blocked number. Wyatt, he answered. Chimera complete, said the voice from the satellite call. Package delivered. Confirmation awaits your review. Send it through standard channels, Russell replied before hanging up. Minutes later, his encrypted email pinged with a new message containing a video file. Russell watched it silently, his expression revealing nothing. When it ended, he deleted the file and cleared his browser history. His regular phone rang almost immediately. Chief Richardson. There's been a development, the chief said urgently. Alec Reeves was found dead in his cell an hour ago. Apparent suicide. Russell's response was measured. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Richardson's voice rose. Russ, he was a federal prisoner in protective custody. His death will trigger a major investigation. I'm sure it will, Russell agreed calmly. Was there a note? Richardson paused. Yes, actually. A full confession claiming Brooke masterminded everything and manipulated him into the scheme. Said he couldn't live with the guilt. The feds are verifying the handwriting now. Sounds like a man who finally faced his conscience. Russ, Richardson's voice dropped. Tell me you had nothing to do with this. I've been home all evening, Bull. You can check my security system. The chief was silent for a long moment. This feels too convenient. Sometimes justice works in unexpected ways, Russell replied. I'll talk to you tomorrow. The next morning brought news that Brooke had suffered a complete breakdown after learning of Reeves's death. She was now confessing to everything, including planning to have Russell killed. She named her contact, Thomas T-Bone Malone, a Miami-based enforcer with ties to organized crime, who owed her for providing an alibi in a previous case. By afternoon, the FBI had tracked Malone to a motel outside Phoenix, where they found him preparing surveillance equipment clearly intended for monitoring Russell's home. The arrest was clean, and Malone quickly offered to cooperate in exchange for leniency. Russell received the news from Special Agent Mercer herself, who visited his home to update him. You're very lucky, Mr. Wyatt, she said. If we hadn't caught Malone when we did. Indeed, Russell agreed. I'm grateful for the Bureau's diligence. Mercer studied him curiously. You don't seem particularly disturbed by the fact that your ex-wife tried to have you killed. Agent Mercer, When you've had people actively trying to kill you in war zones, the theoretical threat feels somewhat less immediate. She nodded slowly. Fair enough. Malone claims Brooke promised him $50,000 for the hit. We've been trying to determine where she would get that kind of money while incarcerated. I assume she still has contacts we don't know about, Russell suggested. Perhaps. Mercer agreed, though she sounded unconvinced. In any case, both Brooke and Malone are now facing additional charges. Between the original fraud case and this murder-for-hire plot, she'll likely never see freedom again. Justice served, Russell remarked. After Mercer left, Russell received a call from Harvey Maxwell. The final transfers are complete, Harvey reported. All funds have been distributed as requested. Thank you, Harvey. That concludes our business on this matter. Russell, the attorney said hesitantly, what you've done here, it's extraordinary. Most people in your position would have kept everything for themselves. I'm not most people, Harvey, and money has never been my primary motivation. That evening, Chief Richardson arrived unannounced at Russell's door, a bottle of 30-year-old scotch in hand. We need to talk, he said grimly. Inside, Richardson poured them each a generous measure before sitting heavily on the sofa. I've known you for 20 years, Russ. Served with you, bled with you. I've never asked questions about your methods because, frankly, I didn't want to know. Russell sipped his scotch, waiting. But this situation with Reeves, Richardson continued, it's bothering me. The timing, the convenient suicide note, Brooke's subsequent breakdown. It's all too clean. Sometimes things work out cleanly, Russell observed. Richardson set his glass down. Cut the bullshit. Did you arrange Reeves's death? Russell met his old friend's gaze steadily. No laws were broken by me, Bull. I promised you that from the beginning. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're going to get, Russell replied. Some questions are better left unasked. They sat in tense silence until Richardson spoke again. Chimera. That was your contingency protocol in Damascus, wasn't it? The one that eliminated the arms dealer without leaving any traceable evidence. Russell's expression remained neutral. That operation is still classified. God damn it, Russ. Richardson ran a hand over his face. I put my career on the line for you. If there's even a hint that you orchestrated a hit in federal custody, there won't be, Russell interrupted firmly, because nothing can be traced back to me. Nothing ever could. The chief studied his former teammate carefully. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? You knew Brooke would try to have you killed. I considered it a likely outcome, Russell admitted. People like Brooke don't accept defeat gracefully. And Reeves was a liability to everyone, including her. His remorse was convenient timing. Richardson drained his glass. The FBI is closing both cases, the fraud and the murder for hire. As far as they're concerned, justice has been served. Indeed it has. As Richardson prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Just tell me one thing. Are we finished with this now? No more surprises? No more bodies? Russell smiled thinly. I'm done with the past, Bull. From here, I only look forward. After the chief left, Russell returned to his study, opening his laptop to review an email from Dennis. Attached were surveillance photos of Thomas Malone meeting with a slender man at a cafe 3 days earlier, before Malone had come to Phoenix. The man's face was partially obscured, but Russell recognized him immediately. Right on schedule, he murmured, deleting the email. Everything had unfolded exactly as he'd planned from the moment he discovered Brooke's betrayal. The arrests, Reeves's demise, Brooke's breakdown, Malone's capture. All predictable moves in a game where Russell had controlled the board from the beginning. Justice, after all, was simply strategy executed perfectly. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. 6 months later, Russell stood at the bow of his yacht, watching the Miami skyline recede as they moved into open water. The evening was perfect. Warm breeze, clear skies, the distant thrum of the city giving way to the rhythmic sound of waves against the hull. Beautiful evening, commented Dennis Harper, joining him with 2 glasses of champagne. Perfect for a celebration, Russell agreed, accepting a glass. To new beginnings, Dennis toasted. They clinked glasses as Leo Thompson and 3 other former teammates emerged from the cabin, all dressed in casual evening wear. The guest of honor has arrived, Leo announced, gesturing behind him. From the cabin appeared Miguel Delgado, accompanied by a striking woman with silver-streaked dark hair, Captain Teresa Valdez, now retired from the Scottsdale PD. "Sorry we're late," Miguel said. "Someone insisted on double-checking security at the marina." Valdez smiled unapologetically. "Old habits. We wouldn't have it any other way," Russell assured her, raising his glass. To Teresa, whose instincts for justice match her excellence as an investigator. The group toasted as they settled into the comfortable seating area. The yacht's crew served dinner as they sailed along the coast, the conversation flowing easily among people who shared the unique bond of those who had served together. As the evening progressed, Dennis discreetly handed Russell a tablet. The final report, as requested. Russell excused himself, stepping away to review the document in private. It detailed the current status of everyone connected to what the team now simply called the situation. Brooke remained in federal prison, serving a 20-year sentence for fraud, conspiracy, and solicitation to commit murder. Her mental health had deteriorated significantly after Reeves's death, requiring periodic stays in the psychiatric wing. Thomas T-Bone Malone had received 15 years for his role in the murder-for-hire plot, though his cooperation had spared him a longer sentence. Most interesting was the section on Francis Wheeler, the slender man from Dennis's surveillance photos, Reeves's cellmate and the instrument of his suicide. Wheeler had been released from federal custody 3 months ago, all charges against him mysteriously dropped. He had immediately left the country for Uruguay, where he now lived in a comfortable house with no visible means of support. The final page contained financial records showing the distribution of recovered funds. $100,000 to a scholarship fund for children of fallen Special Forces operators, $50,000 to a women's shelter in Scottsdale, and most significantly, $175,000 to various members of Reeves's family, his elderly mother, his sister raising 3 children alone, his brother caring for a disabled child. Russell deleted the file and returned to the group, where Chief Richardson had now joined them. "Bull," Russell greeted him. "I didn't think you could make it. And Miss Teresa's retirement celebration? Not a chance." Richardson handed Russell a folded newspaper. "Thought you might find this interesting." The article detailed the FBI's successful prosecution of an international money laundering ring operating through Costa Rica. Among those arrested was a banker who had worked closely with Alec Reeves on various investment opportunities. "Justice casts a wide net," Richardson commented. "Indeed it does," Russell agreed. Later, as the yacht anchored in a quiet cove for the night, Russell found himself alone with Valdez on the upper deck. "Beautiful boat," she observed. "Recent acquisition. A fresh start," Russell replied. "New boat, new home, new life." "Speaking of new," Valdez said carefully, "I received a job offer yesterday. Private security consulting for a firm in Washington. They specifically requested me." Russell smiled. "You'd be perfect for it." The recommendation came from someone named Russell Wyatt. She gave him a knowing look. Strange coincidence. The world is full of them. Valdez leaned against the railing. "You know, I've spent my career figuring people out, reading between the lines, connecting dots. And what dots have you connected, Teresa?" "That justice and revenge aren't always separate concepts," she said thoughtfully. "Sometimes they run parallel, like train tracks heading to the same destination." Russell considered this. "In my experience, the best strategy isn't about choosing between justice and revenge. It's about ensuring both are served simultaneously, so perfectly that no one can tell where one ends and the other begins. Like what happened with Reeves." Russell's expression revealed nothing. "Reeves made his choices. So did Brooke. So did I. And Wheeler." Valdez asked quietly, "What choice did he make?" "To accept an opportunity when it presented itself," Russell replied simply. "Some debts can never be repaid, but they can be redirected to better purposes." Valdez nodded slowly, like supporting Reeves's innocent family members with the recovered money. Russell looked surprised. "I told you I connect dots," she smiled. "That's why I'll take the consulting job. I appreciate working with people who understand that justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about protecting the innocent." "Welcome to the team, Teresa," Russell said, offering his hand. As they shook, his phone buzzed with a message, An alert from his security system showing someone approaching his Miami penthouse. The facial recognition identified the visitor as Paula Reeves, Alex's sister, carrying flowers. The message she had left at the front desk was simple. Thank you for remembering the ones he forgot. Russell deleted the alert without comment. Some acknowledgments required no response. Later that night, alone in his stateroom, Russell opened his safe and removed the final item connected to his former life, his wedding ring. He hadn't worn it since the night of Brooke's arrest, but had kept it as a reminder of the price of trust given too freely. He walked to the deck and stood at the railing, the platinum band gleaming in the moonlight. Without ceremony, he dropped it into the dark waters below. There was a soft sound behind him. Russell turned to find Dennis standing there. "Is it finally over?" Dennis asked quietly. Russell looked out at the endless horizon where the ocean met the night sky. "It was over the moment I made that call from the police station," he replied. "Everything since then was just tidying up loose ends." "And now?" Russell smiled, a genuine expression that had been rare during the past year. "Now we move forward. There are other missions waiting, other wrongs to right." Dennis nodded in understanding. "The team is ready whenever you are." As his friend departed, Russell remained at the railing, feeling the weight of the past year finally lifting from his shoulders. He had lost a wife, but rediscovered his purpose and his tribe. The men and women who understood that in a world of chaos, sometimes the only justice available was the kind you crafted yourself. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It never truly had been. It was about restoring balance to a world that had temporarily tilted off its axis. The chief of police had asked Brooke who she thought she was messing with. Now she knew, and so did anyone else who might make the same grave mistake in the future. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Architect of His Own Ruin. James Reed had always been a builder, not of houses or monuments, but of quieter things, trust, stability, a life measured in mortgage payments and anniversary dinners at the same Italian restaurant where he'd proposed. For 17 years, he'd built a marriage with Christine Palmer, believing that his steady hands and reliable heart were enough foundation for forever. He should have noticed the cracks sooner. The advertising firm he'd poured his soul into for 2 decades downsized 6 months ago, and James's position as senior creative director became a line item on his severance package. Christine had smiled when he told her, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, and said all the right words about fresh starts and new opportunities. Within a week, she'd filed for divorce. The proceedings were surgical. Christine's attorney, a shark named Morris McElroy with teeth capped too white and a reputation for destroying men, tore through James's finances like cancer. The house, bought with James's inheritance from his grandmother, went to Christine. The savings account drained for her emotional suffering. The car, the furniture, even the goddamn espresso machine James had saved for months to buy. "Your Honor," McElroy had said, adjusting his Rolex with theatrical precision, "my client sacrificed her own career aspirations to support Mr. Reed's ambitions. She deserves compensation for those lost years." The lie was so brazen James almost laughed in court. Christine had quit her receptionist job after 3 months of marriage, claiming migraines. She'd spent the next 17 years perfecting her tennis serve at the country club James couldn't afford to join. The judge, a gray-haired woman who looked like she'd heard every story twice, awarded Christine 70% of everything. James walked out of the courthouse with his clothes, his grandfather's watch, and a checking account showing $247. That night, Christine had called him, not to apologize, not to express even a shred of remorse, to gloat. "You'll die alone and broke," she'd said, her laughter sharp as breaking glass. "That's what happens to men who bore me, James. You were always so adequate. Roger says I should have left you years ago." Roger, The name hit him like a fist to the stomach. Roger Clements, his former business partner, the man who'd stood as best man at their wedding, who'd eaten at their table every Sunday for 5 years. The man who'd voted to eliminate James's position when the firm downsized. James had hung up without responding. What was there to say? She'd already taken everything that mattered. Almost everything. He still had his plasma. Chapter 2. The Transaction. The donation center squatted between a pawn shop and a check-cashing place on the east side, the kind of neighborhood where desperation wore a familiar face. James had driven past it 100 times, never imagining he'd be the one walking through those doors. The waiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and defeat. A teenage mother bounced a crying baby on her knee. An old man with shaking hands filled out paperwork with painful slowness. A woman James's age stared at nothing, her eyes hollow. First time, the receptionist asked. Her name tag read Kara. She had kind eyes that had seen too much. That obvious? You're wearing a tie. She pushed a clipboard across the desk. Fill this out. We pay $40 for your first donation. $40. James had spent more than that on wine he couldn't taste the difference in. Now, it was 2 weeks of groceries if he shopped carefully. He took the clipboard to a plastic chair that wobbled on uneven legs and began filling in the blanks of his diminished life. The nurse who called him back was young, professionally cheerful in a way that felt rehearsed. I'm Emily, she said, leading him to a chair that looked like it belonged in a dentist's nightmare. Ever donated before? Never. No problem. I'll need to do a quick health screening, take some vitals, test your blood. The whole process takes about 90 minutes. She wrapped a blood pressure cuff around his arm. So what brings you in today? Rent, James said simply. Emily's professional smile softened into something genuine. I hear that. She drew 3 vials of blood with practiced efficiency. Okay, I'm going to run these to the lab. Back in 5. She wasn't. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. James watched the clock, watched the other donors cycle through their chairs. Tubes connected like some dystopian assembly line harvesting human fluid for profit. When Emily returned, her face had changed. The color had drained from her cheeks, and her hands trembled slightly as she gripped his file. Sir, she said, her voice carefully controlled. I need you to stay right here. Don't move. I need to call someone. What's wrong? Ice flooded James's veins. Cancer. HIV. Something terminal they'd found swimming in his blood. Nothing's wrong. Just please wait. She disappeared into the back office. Through the window, James saw her on the phone, gesturing urgently. 2 other staff members crowded around her, looking at something on her computer screen, then at James, then back at the screen. 20 minutes later, 3 men in suits rushed through the donation center doors like they owned the place. They moved with purpose, parting the crowd of donors without touching them, radiating authority and expensive cologne. The lead one was in his 60s, silver-haired, and imposing in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than James's last paycheck. His eyes found James and locked on with laser focus. He walked straight to James's chair, stopped, and stared. His face cycled through emotions, shock, disbelief, something that looked almost like relief. After 32 years, he whispered, loud enough for James to hear, we finally found you. Chapter 3. The Inheritance in His Veins. The man's name was Albert Riddle, CEO of Riddle Pharmaceuticals. The other 2 were lawyers, introduced quickly and forgotten immediately. They ushered James into a back office that the donation center clearly didn't know existed, all dark wood and leather that didn't match the fluorescent despair of the waiting room. Mr. Reed, Albert said, settling into a chair across from James with the gravity of a man about to change someone's life, I apologize for the dramatic entrance. But what we've discovered in your blood, he paused, choosing his words carefully. It's nothing short of miraculous. I have cancer, James said flatly. What? No. Albert actually laughed. Mr. Reed, you're possibly the healthiest person in this city. What you have is something we've been searching for since 1993. A genetic mutation so rare that our models suggested only 3 to 5 people on Earth possess it. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were charts, graphs, genetic sequences that looked like abstract art. 32 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with Herman syndrome. Do you know what that is? James shook his head. Didn't think so. It's so rare, most doctors never see a case. It's a degenerative neurological disorder that destroyed her nervous system cell by cell. She was 8 years old. Albert's voice cracked slightly. We tried everything. Every treatment, every experimental therapy. She died in 1995, 2 months before her 11th birthday. I'm sorry, James said, meaning it. After her death, I dedicated my company to finding a cure. We discovered that the disease is caused by a specific protein deficiency. The human body can't produce the protein naturally, except in the rarest cases. People with a mutation on the HRNX4 gene. Albert tapped the folder. People like you. I don't understand. Your plasma, Mr. Reed, contains antibodies that can not only treat Herman syndrome, but potentially cure it. There are currently 847 diagnosed cases in the United States alone. Worldwide, thousands. Children dying because their bodies can't produce what yours makes naturally. One of the lawyers leaned forward. Mr. Reed, Riddle Pharmaceuticals is prepared to offer you a contract for exclusive plasma donation rights. We're talking twice-weekly donations, full medical care, and compensation of $15 million, Albert interrupted. $5 million signing bonus, $10 million paid out over 5 years. Plus royalties on any treatment developed using your plasma. The number didn't compute. James had been counting pennies that morning, calculating whether he could afford both electricity and food. Why, he managed. Because you have something money can't buy. Because 847 families are praying for what's in your veins. And because Albert's expression hardened. Because I won't let what happened to my daughter happen to anyone else if I can prevent it. James looked at the contract the lawyer slid in front of him. The numbers were real. The signatures were real. This was actually happening. I need to think about it, he said. Albert nodded slowly. I understand. Take 24 hours. But Mr. Reed, please understand. Every day we delay, children are dying. They gave him a card, a phone number, and a check for $40 for his plasma donation. James walked out of the center in a daze. The contrast so surreal, he wondered if he'd imagined the entire conversation. His phone rang as he reached his car. A 15-year-old Honda that Christine's lawyer had deemed not worth fighting for. Frank Norton, his only real friend who'd survived the divorce. James, where are you? I've been calling all morning. Donating plasma. James said, the absurdity of everything hitting him at once. Jesus. Listen, I heard something you need to know. I ran into Bridget Palmer at the grocery store. Christine's sister. The one who'd seemed sympathetic during the divorce. Who'd told James she thought Christine was being unreasonable. And she got drunk, started bragging. James, Christine, and Roger have been planning this for over a year. They wanted you out of the firm specifically so they could take your position and your shares. Roger's been promoted to CEO. They're selling the company to Whitmore Media next month for $16 million. Christine gets half because they've been partners the whole time. James's hand tightened on the phone. She destroyed me for $8 million. There's more. Bridget said Christine specifically dragged out the divorce proceedings to drain your legal fund, make you desperate enough to accept her terms. She called it breaking you. Her words. The sun was setting, painting the parking lot in shades of red. James looked at the donation center, then at Albert Riddle's business card in his hand. $15 million. 847 dying children. And a woman who'd laughed while she destroyed him. Frank, James said quietly, I need you to do something for me. I need you to not tell anyone what I'm about to tell you. Can you do that? Of course. Good. Because I'm about to become very wealthy. And Christine is about to learn what it costs to underestimate adequate men. Chapter 4. The Devil in the Details. James signed the contract at 9 a.m. the next morning in Albert Riddle's downtown office, a glass tower that looked down on the city like a benevolent god. The lawyers witnessed. The check cleared into his account with a digital efficiency that felt unreal. And just like that, James Reed was worth $5 million with 10 more on the way. Welcome to Riddle Pharmaceuticals, Albert said, shaking his hand. We'll start with comprehensive medical testing tomorrow. I want you under the care of our best people. I appreciate that, but I have a request. Albert's eyebrows rose. Go on. I want my participation kept completely confidential. No press releases, no announcements. As far as the world knows, James Reed is still broke. May I ask why? James smiled for the first time in months. Let's call it a social experiment. He left the building and drove straight to Frank's apartment, a modest two-bedroom where his friend had lived since his own divorce 3 years prior. Frank was waiting with coffee and the tactical mind that had made him invaluable in the army before he'd become an accountant. Okay, Frank said, spreading papers across his dining table. I did some digging. Roger Clements doesn't just want a job. He wants to erase you. He's been telling everyone at the firm that you were deadweight, that you hadn't had a good idea in years. Creative revisionism. It gets better. I pulled the company's financial records. Don't ask how. The Whitmore Media deal? It's contingent on the firm showing growth. Roger's been cooking the books, attributing your projects to himself. The Kaufman campaign that won 3 awards? Isn't the records. The Riverside rebranding that brought in $2 million? Also his. James studied the documents. Months of his work, his late nights, his creative bleeding, all credited to Roger Clements. He's also been feeding information to McElroy, Christine's lawyer. Every asset you try to hide, every financial move you made, Roger told them. They've been partners since the beginning. How long have they been sleeping together? Best guess, 2 years, maybe longer. Frank poured more coffee. Here's what I don't understand. Why go through all this? Roger's got money. Christine got most of yours. Why salt the earth? Because Christine doesn't just want things. She wants to win. James remembered their early years, the way she played tennis. Not for exercise, but to dominate. How she'd ended friendships over perceived slights. How she kept score in everything. Leaving me with nothing is the ultimate victory. So what's the play? James pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and showed Frank the balance. $5,247. Frank's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. What the hell? My blood is worth $15 million to a pharmaceutical company. They found a genetic mutation that can cure a rare disease. James smiled. Christine tried to leave me with nothing. She left me with everything. Okay, but what are you going to? I'm going to destroy them. Not with lawyers or court battles. I'm going to dismantle everything they've built, piece by piece, and I'm going to make them watch. Frank leaned back, a slow grin spreading across his face. I'm listening. Over the next 3 hours, they sketched out the framework. James would remain publicly broke, living in the cheap studio apartment he'd rented in a building that smelled of mildew and broken dreams. He continued to appear desperate, defeated. Meanwhile, he'd use his money to carefully, methodically destroy the foundations of Christine and Roger's empire. First, James said, I need information. Everything about their lives. Where's Roger vulnerable? Frank consulted his notes. He's got a gambling problem he thinks he's hiding. Poker games every Thursday at the Riverside Casino, consistently losing. He's into the house for about 60 grand. Good. What about Christine? She's expensive. Country club fees, spa memberships, that new Lexus. She's burning through the divorce settlement faster than anticipated. So they need the Whitmore Media sale to go through. Desperately, James stood, walked to Frank's window. The city sprawled below, millions of people chasing their own small victories and defeats. Then we make sure it doesn't, James said. And we make sure they destroy themselves in the process. Chapter 5. Pawns and Players. The key to revenge, James learned, wasn't rage, it was patience. And capital. He started small. A shell corporation registered in Delaware under the name Norwood Ventures, managed by a corporate attorney who asked no questions as long as the retainer cleared. Through Norwood, James began acquiring debts. Roger's gambling markers were the first. $63,000 worth of bad bets, purchased from a casino for 70 cents on the dollar. Legal, clean, and suddenly James owned Roger's desperation. Don't call him, Frank warned when James suggested making contact. Not yet. Let him sweat. The casino's been patient, but Norwood Ventures doesn't have to be. Instead, James had the attorney send a polite letter demanding immediate payment. 45 days to settle the full amount. or legal action would commence. The second move was more elegant. James hired a private investigator named Marty Bishop, a former cop with a whiskey voice and a talent for finding what people wanted hidden. Marty's first assignment was simple: document everything Roger and Christine did. Every lunch, every meeting, every indiscretion. They're not subtle. Marty reported 2 weeks later, sliding a folder of photographs across the table at the diner where they met. Country club lunches 3 times a week. She's wearing jewelry that costs more than my car. They're celebrating like they've already won. The photos showed Christine and Roger at the Riverside Country Club, champagne and oysters, laughing like teenagers. In one image, Christine wore a diamond bracelet that caught the afternoon light. James recognized it. She told him years ago it was her dream piece. $30,000 at Cartier. They're spending money they don't have yet, James observed. Counting chickens, Marty agreed. I also found something interesting. Christine's sister, Bridget Palmer? She's not as loyal as Christine thinks. Explain. She's got her own money problems. 3 credit cards maxed out, behind on her mortgage. And she's bitter. Feels like Christine got everything while she got nothing. The divorce settlement, the house, the car. Bridget's one conversation away from spilling every secret she knows. James smiled. Then let's have that conversation. Bridget Palmer lived in a townhouse in the suburbs, the kind of place that looked nice from the street but had an air of quiet desperation in the details. The overgrown lawn, the faded paint, the decade-old minivan with a cracked windshield. James knocked on her door on a Tuesday morning, armed with coffee and an offer. She answered in yoga pants and a stained sweatshirt, her hair pulled back. James? What are you doing here? I wanted to thank you for what you told Frank. About Christine and Roger's plan. Bridget's face went pale. I was drunk. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm glad you did. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. The townhouse interior confirmed his suspicions. Furniture from better times, photographs of children who'd grown up and moved away, the worn carpet of someone who couldn't afford to replace it. I'm not here to cause trouble, James said, settling onto her couch. I'm here to offer you a job. A job. Christine trusts you. Tells you things. I need to know what she's planning, what she's worried about, what keeps her up at night. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. $10,000 now. $5,000 a month for 6 months. All you have to do is be her sister. Listen, remember, tell me. Bridget stared at the envelope like it might bite her. That's a lot of money. Consider it payment for years of being undervalued. Christine got millions in the divorce. What did you get? Debt and a sister who only calls when she needs someone to brag to. Her hand reached for the envelope, stopped. Why are you doing this? Because she laughed when she took everything from me. Because Roger destroyed my career and called it business. Because I've learned that adequate men, when pushed far enough, become dangerous. James stood. You don't have to decide now. But Bridget, your mortgage is 3 months behind. Your credit cards are maxed. How long before you lose this place? He left the envelope on her coffee table and walked to the door. James, she called as he reached for the handle. What are you going to do to her? I'm going to give her exactly what she deserves, he said. The question is, do you want to be collateral damage or do you want to survive? She called him that night and agreed. Chapter 6. The board is set. The medical testing at Riddle Pharmaceuticals took 3 weeks. Dr. Virginia Murphy, head of research, ran every scan, every analysis, mapping James's genetic code with the precision of a cartographer charting new worlds. Remarkable, she said during one session, staring at screens of data. Your body produces the protein naturally at rates we've never seen. We can synthesize a treatment from your plasma that could help all 847 current patients. Maybe more. How many children? James asked. About 60% are under 18. The youngest is 6 months old. 6 months. James thought of Albert Riddle's daughter, dead at 10, and felt something shift in his chest. The money was life-changing, but this mattered. When can you start treating them? We're in FDA approval now. 6 months, maybe 8. Your plasma is already saving lives, James. You should know that. Meanwhile, the trap was closing on Roger and Christine. Bridget proved invaluable. Every lunch, every phone call, every pillow talk confession. she remembered all. James learned that Christine was already planning her next upgrade. A house in the hills, $500,000, purchased with money from the Whitmore media sale. She's picking out furniture, Bridget reported during one of their weekly meetings. Spending Roger's future like it's already in her account. Roger, meanwhile, was hemorrhaging cash. The gambling continued. Thursday nights at the Riverside, Friday nights, an underground poker club Frank's contacts had identified. Norwood Ventures collection letters had escalated. Roger's secretary had been dodging calls for weeks. James's third move was surgical. He bought Christine's dream house. Not under his name. Through another shell corporation, Redwood Holdings, he made an all-cash offer $20,000 above asking price. The sellers accepted within hours. Christine's realtor called her that same afternoon to deliver the bad news. Bridget reported the aftermath with barely contained glee. She threw her phone across the room, screamed for an hour, blamed Roger for not closing the Whitmore deal faster. Good, James said. Keep me updated. The Whitmore media deal was his endgame. Frank had been digging, and what he found was beautiful in its simplicity. The deal was contingent on the firm showing consistent growth and ethical business practices. If Whitmore discovered fraud, creative accounting, stolen credit for campaigns, they'd walk away. James just needed proof. He found it in the firm's server, accessed through a backdoor that a talented hacker named Dale Benson had found for the right price. Roger's entire scheme was there. Emails reassigning James's projects, altered timesheets, fabricated client testimonials. Months of fraud, documented and time-stamped. This is gold, Frank said, reviewing the files. But how do you get it to Whitmore without revealing your hand? James smiled. We don't. We get someone else to. The anonymous tip to Whitmore Media's due diligence team came from a burner phone, untraceable. The email contained detailed allegations of fraud at James's former firm, complete with instructions on where to look in the company's server. Professional, concerned, devastating. Whitmore's lawyers descended on the firm 3 days later. Roger called an emergency staff meeting. Bridget learned about it from Christine, who was panicking. He's terrified, Bridget reported. Christine, too. Whitmore's auditors found something. They're investigating. Tell Christine you're worried about her, James instructed. Be supportive. Let her trust you more. The next week, Norwood Ventures filed a lawsuit against Roger Clements for the $63,000 plus interest and legal fees. The summons was served at his office, in front of his staff, a public humiliation that made the local business news. Christine called Bridget that night, drunk and furious. Everything's falling apart, she slurred. The Whitmore deal might collapse. Roger's being sued. I spent too much on the house deposit, and now someone else bought it. What the hell is happening? Bad luck, Bridget suggested. There's no such thing as luck. Someone's doing this. Who would do this to you? Christine's laugh was bitter. I don't know, but when I find out, I'm going to destroy them. Bridget reported the conversation to James. She's getting paranoid. Suspects someone's targeting them, but doesn't know who. Perfect, James said. Let's give her something else to worry about. He had Dale Benson create a fake social media profile. A beautiful woman named Cassandra, supposedly Roger's type. Cassandra sent Roger a friend request, started liking his posts, commenting with just enough flirtation to be noticed. Roger, predictable as sunrise, took the bait. Within a week, he was messaging Cassandra privately. Within 2, he was suggesting they meet. James forwarded the messages to Christine anonymously. The explosion was nuclear. Bridget called James that night, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Christine destroyed his car, took a golf club to his Porsche in the country club parking lot. Security had to pull her off. It's all over the club's social media. And Roger, denying everything, says it's fake. But Christine doesn't believe him. Bridget paused. James, what's the endgame here? Justice, James said simply. Keep watching. Chapter 7. The House of Cards. The Whitmore media deal collapsed on a Wednesday. Their attorneys issued a statement citing irregularities in financial reporting and questions about ethical business practices. Translation: they found Roger's fraud and wanted no part of it. The firm's value plummeted overnight. Roger's promotion, his reputation, his future, all gone in a corporate press release that was 3 paragraphs of professional destruction. Christine called Bridget hysterical. $16 million gone? How are we supposed to? She stopped, catching herself. How is Roger supposed to recover from this? What about your settlement money? Bridget asked innocently. I spent it. Most of it. The deposits, the car, the country club fees. I thought the Whitmore money was coming. Her voice cracked. What am I supposed to do now? James listened to the recording Bridget had made and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just a cold certainty that this was exactly what Christine deserved. But he wasn't finished. Roger, desperate and cornered, made the mistake James had been waiting for. He tried to embezzle money from the firm to cover his gambling debts. Not much, $50,000 from the company's reserve account, covered with falsified vendor invoices. James had been monitoring the firm's finances through Dale Benson's access. The moment Roger made his move, James documented everything and sent it to the firm's board of directors. The vote to terminate Roger was unanimous. The criminal charges followed within days. Frank called James with the news. Roger's been arrested. Wire fraud, embezzlement. The DA is pushing for prison time. And Christine, she's lawyering up. Apparently, her name is on some of the bank transfers. The DA thinks she might be a co-conspirator. That wasn't part of James's plan, but he didn't try to stop it. Sometimes justice found its own way. The final piece fell into place when Bridget delivered her last report. Christine wants to see you, she said. James's hand tightened on his phone. What? She called me this morning. Said she needs to talk to you. She sounds broken. Did she say why? Something about mistakes and apologies. James, I think she's finally realized how bad things are. Tell her I'll meet her. Tomorrow. The coffee shop where we had our first date. Bridget hesitated. Are you going to hurt her? I'm going to tell her the truth, James said. That's worse. He met Christine at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, in the same corner booth where he'd nervously asked for her number 20 years ago. She looked different, smaller somehow, her expensive clothes hanging wrong, her makeup unable to hide the stress lines around her eyes. James, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for coming. He said nothing, just watched her struggle for words. I know I don't deserve your time. I know what I did was she stopped, swallowed. Roger and I are in serious trouble. The charges, the lawyers, it's all falling apart. I need help. You need money, James corrected. Yes. She couldn't meet his eyes. I know I have no right to ask, but you were always generous, always kind. Maybe we could work something out. Alone. I could pay you back when. When what, Christine? When Roger gets out of prison. When you're acquitted of fraud. When the money fairy drops $16 million in your lap. She flinched. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. You laughed, James said quietly. When you called me that night. You told me I'd die alone and broke, and you laughed. Do you remember that? I was angry. I didn't mean. You meant every word. You spent a year planning how to destroy me. You and Roger gutted my career, took my home, drained my accounts. You called it winning. He leaned forward. Did you win, Christine? Tears ran down her face, ruining her mascara. I made mistakes. I was stupid and cruel, and you were who you've always been. I just didn't want to see it. He stood to leave. Please, she grabbed his arm. James, I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. For 17 years, he'd loved this woman, built a life with her, and she destroyed it all for money and the pleasure of watching him suffer. Good, he said, pulling his arm free. Now you know what it feels like. He walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. Chapter 8. Resurrection. 3 months later, James stood in Dr. Virginia Murphy's lab, watching the first patient receive treatment derived from his plasma. The girl's name was Abigail, Kentucky. She was 7 years old, her body ravaged by Herman's syndrome until she could barely walk. Her parents had exhausted every option, sold everything they owned to pay for experimental treatments that didn't work. Now she sat in a hospital bed, and 4-drip feeding James's synthesized antibodies into her system, while her parents held each other and cried. The results are remarkable, Dr. Murphy said softly. We're seeing improvement in 73% of trial patients. Real improvement, Nervous system regeneration we thought impossible. How long until full FDA approval? 3 months. Maybe 4. And we could treat everyone. She looked at him. You're going to save hundreds of lives, James. Thousands eventually. He watched Abigail's mother smooth her daughter's hair, murmuring prayers of gratitude. What about the money? He asked. The royalties? Based on current projections, you're looking at another $20 million over the next 10 years. More if the treatment proves effective for related disorders. $35 million. James tried to comprehend the number and couldn't. It was abstract, impossible, more money than he'd ever imagined existing in his reality. I want to set up a foundation, he said, for families who can't afford treatment. Full funding, no questions asked. Dr. Murphy smiled. Albert said you'd do something like that. He's already had the lawyers draw up the paperwork. The Riddle Reed Foundation has a nice ring to it. Albert appeared in the doorway, as if summoned. Talking about me? Only good things, James assured him. Liar. Albert moved to the observation window, watching Abigail. My daughter would have been 38 this year. Married, probably. Maybe grandchildren. He was quiet for a moment. Because of you, this girl gets to have that future. You gave her what I couldn't give my daughter. You built the company that made it possible. We make a good team. Albert extended his hand. Welcome to the board, by the way. The directors voted this morning. You're officially part of Riddle Pharmaceuticals' leadership. I don't know anything about running a pharmaceutical company. You don't need to. You know about building things, about patience and precision and seeing the long game. We need that perspective. Albert's grip was firm, paternal. You've been given a gift, James. What you do with it defines who you are. James thought about Christine and Roger. Their trials were next month. Fraud, embezzlement, enough charges to ensure years in prison. He could have pushed harder, made things worse. But watching them destroy themselves had been more satisfying than any revenge he could have orchestrated. I choose to build, he said. Chapter 9. Adequate no more. 6 months after the plasma donation that changed his life, James stood in his new home. Not the mansion Christine had wanted, but a comfortable house in a good neighborhood with a yard big enough for the dog he'd always wanted, but she'd refused. Frank was helping him move in, arguing about where the couch should go. It's too far from the TV, Frank insisted. It's perfect. You just want it closer because you're going blind. I'm not going blind. You bought a TV that's too small. It's 70 inches. Like I said, too small. James's phone rang. Bridget, I thought you should know, she said. The sentencing was today. Roger got 8 years. Christine got 5. Are you okay? James asked. I'm better than them. Better than I've been in years, actually. The money you paid me clear my debts. I'm going back to school, business administration. Figure it's time to build something of my own instead of watching other people succeed. Good for you. James, thank you for giving me a choice, for not lumping me in with Christine. You chose yourself. That's all anyone can do. After he hung up, Frank looked at him expectantly. Well, Christine got 5 years. Roger got 8. Frank nodded slowly. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, maybe? I spent months planning their downfall, and now that it's happened, it just feels finished. That's because revenge was never the point. You wanted justice. You wanted them to face consequences for what they did. That's different, is it? Yeah. Revenge is about hurting people because you're hurt. Justice is about balance. Making things right. Frank settled onto the couch, in the wrong spot. James noticed, but didn't comment. So what now? Now I live. I build the foundation. I work with the pharmaceutical company. I figure out who James Reed is when he's not someone's husband or someone's employee or someone's mark. Sounds adequate, Frank said with a grin. James threw a pillow at him. The doorbell rang. Albert Riddle stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than James's first car. Housewarming gift, Albert said. May I? Please. They sat in the backyard as the sun set. 3 men who'd found unexpected friendship in unusual circumstances. Albert told stories about his daughter, about the company's early days, about the dozens of children whose lives James's blood had saved. We got the latest results today, Albert said. Abigail Kent is walking. Not just standing, not just a few steps walking. Her parents sent me a video. She's running around her backyard, laughing. James felt something catch in his throat. There are 42 other stories just like hers. Kids getting better, families getting hope. Because of you, Albert raised his glass to James Reed, who proved that adequate men, when given the chance, are capable of extraordinary things. They drank to that. Later, alone in his new bedroom, James thought about the plasma donation that had started everything, about walking into that center with $40 worth of hope and walking out with a future he never could have imagined. Christine had been wrong. He hadn't died alone and broke. He'd been reborn, surrounded by people who valued him, doing work that mattered, building a life that was truly his. And somewhere in a prison cell, Christine was learning what it meant to lose everything. The symmetry was almost poetic. James's phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Murphy. Another success story, another child responding to treatment. He read it, smiled, and set the phone aside. Tomorrow he'd go to the foundation office, review grant applications from families desperate for